last few months, last night, three things have stood out to me. The first is that you guys have all placed a tremendous amount of trust and confidence in us, in our ability to deliver on your dreams, and that's an incredible source it's pressure, but it's also an incredible source of energy for us to deliver on your expectations. The second thing that's amazed me is, everyone's different age groups, different businesses, but the one thing that binds all of us here together is that everyone is hungry for more, and everyone is an overachiever, and that's an incredible sense of community that I'm feeling, which brings me to my third point is, there's this amazing community being formed over the last 2 nights. A lot of you are going to be neighbors, whether you choose to live there full time or if you're just investors because you love Trump. And that sense of community that I see forming is powerful and magical, and I think it's going to be amazing as we progress over this journey. Without further ado, I'd love to invite my co-host and the guest of honor, Donald Trump Jr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Kalpesh certainly couldn't have said it better. It's very exciting after seeing everyone over in India, I guess it was last year.
Yep.
Now, to be able to be here, to see this kind of outpouring, to see this many people wanting to come. We were doing some TV and radio and newspaper interviews today, and I think that was the interesting aspect of it. They said, well, what makes it so special? I go, in all fairness, these are all high net worth individuals. They could travel all over the world, but they chose to come here on this trip all together as a collective. They could have done that at any other time, anywhere else, which speaks to the sense of community that Kalpesh is talking about. So it's an honor for us to welcome you here today. Thank you for that. I think we hopefully got selfies out of the way because we tried to do it formalized, because otherwise there's selfies and there's pictures of other people's cameras in your selfie. It's a disaster. So I think we got everyone, okay? Yeah, well, I don't know, it may be too late, okay? We're gonna have to charge him a 10% premium for more selfies at this point, because peace of mind and sanity is also important. So
not to mention Secret Service throwing a fit every time somebody reaches.
Yeah, that's always fun.
No one was faced here.
But thank you so much. So
have a seat.
Here, I'll sit.
You can sit there. So Don, we started this journey a little over 10 years ago. We were both 30 then.
Yes.
I don't think we quite knew what we were doing. But
Certainly not. We pretended well.
We pretended well. Yeah. 10 years later, a little more weight, a little more facial hair. I think we've done. I think
a little more gray too.
A little more gray hair than there. If I told you we'd be in New York with 150 of our buyers from our projects in India, what would you have said then, and what do you feel now?
Well, listen, I think I was an early believer, but I got to experience the true sort of aspirational and aspects of India my first trip. So I was told, Kalpesh, this guy, he went to Harvard, he comes into my office, this is early 2000s. I have the best piece of land in Mumbai. You talk a little bit, you talk about potential deal, eventually you have to go see the land. It's still real estate. You got to be there, right? So I go over, only to find out, well, it's not really my land, but now that you're here, let's talk business. So I learned about India maybe the hard way. Throughout that time, got to meet Kalpesh and so many of the other friends that we're now working with, and it's been an amazing thing. I mean, India has been the market where we've done really the most number of
the US,
foreign deals. It's a market that we continue to thrive in despite everything going on in the world, and it's just been an amazing experience. And as we like to do deals, it's not just sort of about the business, it's also about the friendship and what we've developed, certainly with Kalpesh and so many of our other partners that we've gotten to know over the years has been truly special, which makes things so much easier.
Thank you. Everyone knows you guys as smart business people, now as smart politicians. But what got it all started was being incredible builders, being incredible developers, and that story kind of gets lost along the way. And that's what we're all here because of that. Talk to me a bit more about that.
Well, no, I think it is. It's a unique one in that everyone, well, Trump's a good marketer. It's like, well, you can only do that so long.
Yep.
You can market a project once and sell someone a bill of goods that they're not expecting once, maybe twice. You can't do it over and over again. And I mean, I think anyone from India has certainly seen that, where for the last few decades, many developers, they come and they'll promise X and deliver X minus a lot. And I think it's created a big lack of confidence in some of that market. And so I think that's what's been incredible about this relationship was our vision was sort of aligned. And if we're going to do this, we're going to do this. I mean, even when we've sort of been on opposing sides of the table or of the negotiation or of the financial aspect of it, to see Kalpesh sort of step up and do the right thing to make sure we're delivering that has been incredible for me, because very few people, whether it be in India or frankly anywhere else in the world, do that. But I think to right some of the wrongs, not by us, but by others in the marketplace, has been a really big aspect of what we were doing. And I think it's been an important aspect of what we do in America. I mean, it's been an important business model for us. We don't just build, sell, and leave. We stay involved.
Tell me more about being a builder. Like, you grew up on construction sites.
We did. Well, listen, it's
would
translated.
Go around with an aerosol. Talk to me about the guts and bones of how it all started.
Well, and that's the reality. I mean, he was a builder first and foremost. I think what made him a better builder wasn't just one of these sort of executives in a glass office that is unapproachable, and he only hears from yes men executives who are only looking at spreadsheets and don't understand tangible real estate. And so he was that guy that got on the ground. He was that guy that spoke with the construction workers, figured out how to do it better, but also create efficiencies. And I think, interestingly enough, I think that sort of ability, that willingness and ability to sort of get down in the mud, so to speak, probably translated very well into politics when you think about it. I mean, I think, as he saw that, it wasn't just, again, an executive preaching. It was a guy that has actually created those jobs. Those workers over a 40-year career go, hey, I remember when Donald Trump was on the site for 12 hours straight fixing things with us. I think it made him very relatable in a way that not many, let's call it titans of industry, are relatable, and it had a sort of de facto cause effect that certainly translated to the working men and women of this country.
We talk about quality, we talk about luxury, and luxury is global, but there's also local, there's also India.
Yes.
And we've been breaking our heads for many, many years about how do you bring your standards into India, still marrying.
Correct.
And we've been on opposing sides of the table many times on that.
Well, listen, there's to anything like that, high end or not high end doesn't necessarily mean the same thing. It does in terms of fit and finish, and the goods that are going into that. But there is a contextual aspect of every market, and we've been speaking about this for years. I mean, what may fly in New York may not necessarily go in India. The enclosed kitchens. I mean, I haven't built an enclosed kitchen in a very long time here. Because people sort of want that communal aspect. In India, that's a very different thing. So for me, I'm saying, no, it has to be this. But then when I visit with you, with our partners, some of the design team that's been there, is like, oh, now I get it. Sort of the element of staff quarters and the separate amenities that they have in that area, not necessarily something that would go into high end in this city, but you need it to be high end there. So I think having that element and really always understanding that, that context, whether it's cultural, whether it's regional, whether it's geographic, it's a big part of creating luxury and actually delivering. And I think that's where so many people sort of get lost. They say luxury is X, and we're going to plug X here, we're going to plug X there, we're going to plug X there, and they miss that element, and you wake up in X, and you're like, where am I? I think you need that element of context, not only for sales, I think probably much less relevant for that, but for livability, for life. And that's what this is. It's about a lifestyle. And so, making sure to capture that, certainly from an outside group, we've always been very willing to learn that and do things differently than what we know to be the norm. I think my father made a career on that, right? I mean, he was amenitizing buildings 35 years ago before, well, you wouldn't, wait, that's square footage we could sell. You're not going to put a gym and just give it to them, are you? That's crazy. Well, it's not. I mean, today you couldn't
It's
even
the norm,
imagine building high-end without those kind of things. 30 years ago, 35 years ago, 40 years ago, it was unheard of. So, he's always been on that leading edge of pushing, where we're taking things, and has done that very well.
Larger than life father.
I hadn't noticed.
Competitive siblings. How was it growing up? And how, first years on the job. How was that?
Well, listen, if you want to eat, you got to fight, right? I mean, this is basic stuff, but no different than anyone in this room. No, it's been great. The reality is we've always had a very good relationship from a family perspective. So I think, even the tough things like that, I think we've always had the ability to be able to sort of pull back and say, hey,
But your free
let's
time
talk.
was in the office, was in construction sites, wasn't at home watching a movie.
No, listen, my dad was not, the kind of guy that we're going to go play, catch in the backyard with, but we worked on construction sites. If he went and he did that on his weekends too, for him, that's his job, it's his vocation, it's his hobby, it's his passion. He was more than happy to have you around, but it was on his terms, in his context. And so I always joke, I've been working in the company for 41 years, and people are like, I don't understand. It's like, trust me, I was born on New Year's Eve. Okay, so I got the full year's tax deduction for 6 hours. Okay, I came out working hard.
What were the challenging bits growing up Trump, growing up with the fame, growing up with the controversies and the constant spotlight? You've been used to it since you were a kid.
Well, it's certainly more vicious these days, right?
Yes.
But no, we've been used to it. I mean, it was just sort of part of the territory. I mean, I think, whether it be sort of, growing up and through, my parents' divorce as a young, watching that play out in the tabloids as a sort of preteen, tween years, as they call it today in today's vernacular. Not easy, but I think the reality of it was that as difficult as it was, as much as you wouldn't want it to necessarily play out the same way for your children or whatever it may be, I think there was an element that was actually positive out of that. And this is going to sound crazy, but I think we learned at a pretty young age how the real world actually works.
Yeah.
There's sort of the rose-colored glasses, by which you'd love to look at the world, but I think, being able to, get through that and actually see reality is also important. And so I think, for better or worse, we got that trial by fire at a pretty young age and figured it out.
Coming in handy now.
I think so. As my father very wisely said on June 16th, 2015, as he's walking, going down in the elevator, leaving his office to go down the famous escalator ride to announce his run for the presidency, he looks at me, and truer words have not been spoken. He looks at me right in the eyes, he goes, now we find out who our real friends are. And he was right. It was, that was, 18 months sort of run to the presidency, and then on November 9th, 2016, I woke up to 10,000 unread emails. Hey, buddy! Hey, buddy, we were with you all along. I'm like, no, you weren't. You haven't taken my call in 18 months. Cal Pesh took my call. He took my calls. But a lot of those who, were sort of, the quote-unquote people would have called you friends and were always around with you. They wanted to avoid it until it was advantageous again, until it was politically expedient. Then they came right back into the fold. And so it was an interesting process. It sort of, it was a learning curve. It drove home what we probably already knew, and it also made it great because, like, now half my Rolodex, I never have to do the fake lunch. Lunch, they come in, hey, I'm in New York. Let's get lunch. It'll be great. It's like, you don't really want to go. You know what I'm talking about. We all have some of those friends. So now it's like 50% of them just gone. Never have to do it again. So it's been beautiful. It's been very cathartic.
Talk to me about those 18 months. I've seen you transform as a person, sort of 2015 through 16. And I think that's one of the most interesting stories about you. You were the chilled out, you were the easygoing, Trump kid, and now you're the fighter.
Oh.
And it was those 18 months. You just talk to
Well,
us about
sometimes,
that.
I'd like to think I'm still pretty easygoing, but you put me in a corner and not so much, right? It's a little different, but I joke, it took me 41 years to realize that I was a lot more like my father than myself or anyone probably ever thought. Yeah. The reality is, so much of what he's gone through, so much of what I've gone through, probably, the number 2 target of the other side. When you have half the country, or certainly at least half the elite political establishment, if not more than half, frankly. Yeah. Even those on our side who, aren't happy that someone could come in and dismantle their claim to the throne should have probably never been a claim to begin with, but they've been there for a long time, so it's their turn. That was interesting, and it certainly makes for a fun story.
What was going through your head those 18 months when the whole
just-
world's against you and
just
you're
win.
taking hits?
Just go fight. And so it's, I lost 25 pounds during the election, and it wasn't because I wasn't hungry. It was just I could eat lunch, or I could make 5 fundraising calls. I could eat lunch, or I could give one more speech. I could have dinner or do one more thing. I remember, I think you know my friend Tommy Hicks, and a couple of my buddies that were true friends that came out, literally left their jobs for 9 months to be like, this is too important. Left, good jobs, not like for an unpaid journey along with me for 9 months. And I remember going to him one night. It was about 2 weeks before the election. We're in Michigan, of all places, where we're not supposed to be, because we just say, hey, if we have time, let's go do it. It's about this time of night. It's 9:30 at night. I had to go do Sean Hannity or one of the big TV shows that night. And I look at him. I go, Tommy, I'm just really, really hungry. He goes, yeah, that's because you haven't eaten since yesterday breakfast. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, we haven't had a meal since yesterday morning. It's now 9:30 at night the next day. And it was just that mentality of like, what can I do to move that needle forward? If I can make that call, if I can take that extra selfie, if I can do that, that's time well spent. And so I guess some of that old school work ethic really pulled through, and we went hard.
I met you the week after elections, and I asked you how were you feeling, and you're like, it hasn't sunk in yet, because I still wake up
true.
every day.
That was interesting. I mean, it was sort of a funny story. I'm in the process of just finished up kind of a book. We'll go to print in early November, and it was sort of one of those things where on election night, the news media, they say, they still may get Pennsylvania. I go, wait a minute, there's 99% reporting in. I'm no genius when it comes to math, but I'm saying if you gave her 100% of the remaining 1%, we still win. So, the media was milking it for ratings and for all of this. And I see it, and they call it, and they're like, you win. I'm like, I don't know. I was just very cynical.
Yep.
And it's almost a shame, because like I said,
You can
at
enjoy
a young
it, yeah.
age, I probably learned to look at the world through, realist glasses as opposed to rose-colored glasses. But I said, I don't know what's going on. Something's not right here. And then when John Podesta, Hillary's manager, got on stage, well, we'll see tomorrow. I was happier because I figured they were going to play a game. They were going to try to do all of the things that they said the Trump supporters were going to do. They were going to try to lie, cheat, steal their way. They were going to riot. All the things the Trump supporters were supposed to do. Well, they've been doing it for 3 years. Which is pretty typical. But unfortunately, there's no profession to report on those kind of things anymore.
Yep.
When the left does it. If the right does it, they'll talk about it, till you're blue in the face. For them, there was no. So the great irony was, I was happier that in my mind they were going to contest it, and they were going to do basically what they did. They didn't contest the election per se, but they tried to sabotage it throughout. So I was happier that I was like, I got this figured out, than that we had won this 2-year-long battle, which is not a normal response. I don't wish that sort of mentality, frankly, on anyone.
Sure.
But it was interesting, and it took sort of 2.5 months, whatever it was, between Election Day and the day before the inauguration. When we pulled into Arlington National Cemetery for the wreath-laying ceremony, and you're looking around of all these American heroes, and you're saying, wow. That's when it hit me. That's when you realize the magnitude of what we had accomplished, the gravity of the situation, the responsibility that would now be on my father's shoulders. That's when it really all hit. So it was pretty amazing, but it was like let's call it almost a 3-month lag.
Business, politics, 5 kids, your hobbies. How are you balancing it all?
You just do it all. We've put aside some of the business, obviously, doing new international deals. We voluntarily said we weren't going to do that. That doesn't prevent the media from, they talk about, we sold a cheeseburger to someone from a different, that's terrible. But, the fact that we're not doing 25 other projects that we could be doing, no commentary on that. So it's sort of interesting. You just make time. I've been able to, get a pretty good balance. I try to make sure I do my kid stuff. I think the way I've always looked at it, and this isn't necessarily the right mentality for a lot of people, but I don't know that anyone's been on their deathbed and said, you know what, I wish I did one more deal. I really want to do one more deal. I think they do regret probably not spending that time with their family or doing doing some sort of experiential thing that they've always wanted to do. So, I sort of look at it that way and try to get it all in.
Awesome. Switching gears, you're one of the few American guys that can do spicy food more than I can. How did that happen?
Yeah.
It's a good story.
It is. So when we were growing up, my father had a very large yacht, 100-meter plus kind of boat, and with a big crew, 35, 40 people, and about 8 or 9 of the crew members were from Sri Lanka. So when you're 8 to 12 years old, you want to hang out with the young, cool guys, and the crew were cool, and I'd hang out with them, I'd eat with the crew, and the guys from Sri Lanka usually cooked for themselves.
Yeah.
So at first they were like, well, you want to try some? And it's, this is not for you. And I'm like, no, I'm tough because I'm 8 years old. And I'm a Trump. So between ego, genetics, and I can handle it. Well, I learned the hard way that I probably could not handle it, but I also, the mentality, I was not going to give up. I was not going to quit. So, the first few times I'd be sitting there, no, I'm crying. No, it's very good, I'm fine. Crying, they're all laughing at me, and but I won't give in. But eventually you develop a little bit of a taste. So yeah, I think once you can handle food from Sri Lanka, meaning the full spice version, not like the tourist, tourist hotel version of Sri Lankan food, but full-blown Sri Lanka, I think you can handle probably anything in the world. And so I've done that. Whenever I go, whether it's business, no, we have the American menu. I'm like, no, give me the other one. And I don't think there's been anyone that hasn't been pretty amazed with my ability to handle spicy food.
Excellent. We're gonna see you in India probably next year or the year after next. Talk to us. There was somebody here who asked me, how am I going to be sure that I get what I've paid for? And I said, well, if I don't give it to you, Don's going to whip my ass. So
True story.
Can you expound?
True story, by the way.
On that, and how you make sure that we're in line and we're not like every other Indian developer?
Well, I mean, we do it today. I mean, we keep people involved. Our teams are involved. Our design and construction teams are involved. They're going there. I mean, you met with them today. It's when we have an architect, whether it's Matteo, one of the projects from Italy, it's not just okay, we'll get a design, then we'll build 50% of that design, and you're out. I mean, we literally had the conversation today about making sure that those guys are there. So there's sort of a checks and balances built in contractually, but honestly at this point more than contractually, they're built in from friendship and an understanding that's really the basis of our whole deal. I mean, at this point with Kalpesh, a handshake means more to me than the contract, even if it's not in the contract. If he tells me he's going to do it, I've seen him do it, and that's rare these days. But it's been an important part of that, and it's why we've sort of come back, because it's not one deal, and then the next, and then the next, because once you have that working relationship, that's far more important to I think both of us, than any one deal or any one issue certainly. And so I think that's sort of really built into the deal, into the relationship, into our willingness to just do that. And it's been an important thing of the whole thing.
Thank you. Parting words for 150 of our most.
Well, again, it's exciting to see everyone be here to make that kind of journey, to be able to hang out there, to be really involved in the lifestyle, means all the world to us. I wish the weather would have cooperated a little bit better, because the view of the city from here and the water is incredible. But
Indians love this. We love it.
It is a nice kind of. It does have a little bit of a romantic feel, a little romantic mist. But certainly not monsoon season. No. So it's not too bad. But it's just great to be here with everyone and to be able to experience this with you. And we look forward to seeing you back in India soon enough.
I want to take the opportunity to call the Patorias of Unimark to join us here.
Of course.
M3M could not be here today. The Bansals couldn't, but...
well, we spoke with Pankaj earlier, and
yes.
you went back and forth, so we'll make that one happen too. How's it going, guys?
Thank you, guys. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.
We'll be here. Dinner, drinks, dance.
Can we get some food? Yeah, of course. All right, let's get some food.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.